I bumped into a fella today that I probably haven't seen for 2 years. I haven't been to the gym for a year, something like that, and probably another year since I last seen him. Yeah, so it's been probably 2 years. I don't know if he's listening to this or not, but bumped into a fella, 23-year-old fellow Serb. His name is Laz. Laz is a freaking animal, man. This fella's 23 years old. He's got a bench of 207 kilos, squat of 280, deadlift of 260, which is interesting. Bumped into him today. He basically trained next to me for the entire session. He was doing arms, biceps and triceps, and I was doing my back session. And throughout the workout, chatting away, picking his brains. I mean, he's 23, but he's very, very, very elite, obviously, by those numbers. Despite his age, he's way, way ahead of me in terms of this sport and progression. I remember first I saw him, he was squatting beside me in a Norwood gym, probably, like I said, 2-3 years ago, if not even longer than that. Or probably longer than that for sure. It's been 2 years since I last seen him. And he was hitting like 220, 230 at the time, and he was like really, really strong and looked young as well. And soon after I realized he was Serbian, and so we kind of hit it off there and started chatting away. And now he's, a 23-year-old fella with years of training underneath his belt. So I started picking his brains about the bench press. I mean, that's his thing, man. Like, he's really, really advanced in the bench press. Obviously, the squat is also amazing, but he basically told me he had a few months of not training properly. It's been some time since he's really kind of done the SBD properly. Now he's just basically training the bench. Lots of troubles with the knees. His knees are even hurting him when he's bench pressing, so you can imagine. But anyway, lots of things discussed today. The session ended up being 2 hours because I was chatting with him so much and picking his brains. But the one thing that he said to me, I asked him a question, and this really kind of sparked something in me. I asked him, how much of this shit is bodybuilding? How much of strength, I think I said it like this, how much of strength is actually bodybuilding? And he said, man, it's freaking 90% of it. So this struck out to me a lot, like really, really a lot, because okay, so we can read all the freaking studies by Yale, Harvard, and freaking all these freaking fancy universities. But when you meet a guy like that who's done he's not only talk the talk, but he's walk the walk, right? This dude is very advanced. Started chatting, and he basically said to me, in the first year of benching, I hit 140. And all I did was 5 sets of 10 on bench press. That was his thing. He wasn't doing singles, doubles, triples, fives. Nah. 5 sets of 10. And he kept progressing that. Everyone was saying to him, nah, you're not going to get stronger like that. He go to 140. And he's basically stuck with this methodology. Obviously, he's had coaches along the way to guide him along the way, but he still says 90% of strength is bodybuilding, in the sense that you need to build tissue, you need to build mass. That is the thing. And he's a big fella. So he weighs around 100 and he said when he hit the 207, he was around 120 kilos. He averages 110 kilos. Like he hovers around 110, like, when he's not like really top peak performance. So he's a unit. He looks it. He's got this huge freaking chest, arms, really developed back. Like, he looks like a strong guy. Like, he looks like he can bench 200 plus kilos, right? And so we started chatting. I'm telling him, like, I'm doing this bodybuilding thing now, like experimenting with all these ideas, chasing weaknesses. And he's like, the one thing that I was initially asking him was, what's your grip on the bench press? How do you bench? And he's basically saying that he's very much narrow. Like, he puts his finger and lines it up with the smooth. And so his thumb away from the smooth. That's his thing, right? That's how he benches, which is exactly how I bench. And it's very narrow, but that's where he's the strongest. And so he always says that benching is just triceps, dude. Just hammer the triceps and your bench will move, which is something that Louis Simmons used to talk about a ton. Seems like every freaking big bench presser that I see always talks about triceps. And I said to him, look, man, I'm doing this wide thing at the moment where I'm basically index finger on the ring, really, really wide, and it's kicking my ass, but I'm hoping that that's going to develop my narrow, specifically off the chest strength. And he was like, dude, I'm not sure about that. Like, I think you should be chasing your triceps. But he says that he fails all of his benching at the top. So no trouble getting off the chest at all, which is the opposite to me. So, we kind of, talking about this, and it became more and more apparent as the session was going. I've never really trained with this guy before. I mean, Laz is a freaking machine and usually trains in another gym as well. So I don't see much of him. But he was basically training, I don't know how many freaking different exercises he was doing for his triceps. He did overhead press. Then he moved over to Smith machine floor presses. Then he went over to the cable machine, did like a bunch of different handles on that, double, single, like all sorts of stuff. And then he was like, I need to do biceps now as well. So obviously volume is massive with a guy like that. Obviously tricep is the main force of his bench press. But it kind of, just really resonated with me, especially the stuff that I'm doing right now, how much bodybuilding actually this is. And we spoke about some of the people that train in the gym and some of the beginners that you see around. They want to get strong and they think doing singles, doubles, and triples is where it's at, or even fives. But he's like, if you want to be strong, dude, do tens. Body build for 90% of it. Sure, practice your single, but that's not your volume. That's not doing anything, man. That's just practicing the sport. So he's like, the bulk of my progression, up to 140 kilos. And how many people can actually hit 140? Not many, right? Not many. And so, his path to 140 was just do bodybuilding. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, I can hit 150, right? But I could probably use the same idea, just keep on pushing the volume, progress it. Number of different, implements, just keep on chasing that tissue. And he's kind of like resonated with me, and he's asking me how's the squat every day going, and I'm like, man, for a long, long part of this journey, I believe that singles, doubles, and triples would get me there. And he got me somewhere. Obviously, like 212 kilos is not a tiny squat, but it gets you to a certain point. But then you need more tissue, you need more mass, and so I had this belief that I could just continue doing high specificity, high intensity, or high weight, low volume, and just do it with a high frequency and hoping that it would, it would bring about gains. But it's only during periods where I've done, when I've survived, I think I need to use that word, survived, and an increased amount of volume, and that's kind of what led to the progression. And the reason why I use the word survive is because, as you guys know, the hip pain has plagued me for many years and has been the bane of my existence when it comes to training. I feel like this year I've kind of worked something out because I did the whole AMRAP period earlier this year, 180 for 30, and I was telling Laz today about that as well, and I'm like, man, it's a very, very good period, so technically speaking, I should be, more than ready to hit 220. And he saw me hit 180 today, and he's like, dude, go for 220, I'm here, do it. And I'm like, dude, I'm so scared of the hip pain, I haven't practiced anything above 200 recently, and so I'm not there yet, but there's a fear component with the pain and rest of it, blah, 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 blah. But as long as I can survive a decent amount of squat volume, then I know I'm ready to take the next step. So volume is the driving force. Bodybuilding is the driving force, which is essentially a bunch of volume, sub-maximum volume, really. That's what bodybuilding is. And also what bodybuilding is variation. He was doing like 100 different exercises freaking for his triceps. And how many different exercises am I doing for my squats? Well, not many, right? Historically speaking, not many at all. Very high specificity. And that's probably not the best path. Probably pain related as well. So an interesting chat today, interesting exposure to speak to a guy that's advanced. And I mean, he's 23, for God's sake, man. God knows what he was going to do when he gets to my age. Although he's having issues with his knees and, he's now working, obviously. He's an adult now, so life gets in the way sometimes. And he spoke about the knees and, some of the motivational problems that he's having moving forward. But, he's still benching like crazy. And also he mentioned a pec tear, which has kind of really screwed him over as well. He said like it was during a week where he hit number of 180 kilo benches in that 1 week. He was just going YOLO and pushing really, really hard. And then on one set when he was warming up with 140, he just felt a sharp pain and that was it. It wasn't a complete tear or anything, But it really screwed him up because he had, bruising. I think he said bruising and pain all the way through the bicep as well. So he thinks it's the pec minor. And this is what happens when you're dealing with freaking 4 wheels on a bench press and pushing to a 5 wheel. This is some crazy weight, man. It makes me think as well, okay, we all have different genetic limits and whatever, but at a certain point, it's not a kid's game anymore. You can't just willy-nilly slap on weight every single day and just push it and expect nothing to come out of it. Injuries are a part of the game. And when you're elite like he is, if you screw around a little bit, man, it can really cost you, because muscle's one thing, tendons are another. I can't even imagine having 200 kilos in my hands. I mean, that is, Jesus Christ, I'm not even squatting that daily, man, let alone benching it. I can't even fathom having that in my hands. But what really resonated with me was the bodybuilding thing. He said 90% of this strength shit that we're all kind of chasing is bodybuilding. Building that tissue, building that strength base. And that's what it is. And he said that. Louis Simmons said that. Many other guys said. And for some reason, a lot of us less advanced people, we'd spent too much time lifting heavy shit. Why do we do that, man? I even ask myself, why am I doing this shit, man? Why am I doing this pointless crap? Spending too much time with singles. Obviously now I'm pushing hack squats, and I've got hack squats tomorrow, and I'm going to do freaking hundreds of reps there. So that's the huge volume, and then obviously I'm going to do other stuff as well. But finally I'm doing a lot of work, and that's, if you do that for years, you're going to be in good stead. And this is something that he brought up. He said he was arguing with a friend, and they were arguing, who would have more success? This was the question that was put forward. Who would have more success in 5 years' time? Let's say person one benches to sets of 5, or the second person who's benching to sets of 10. Long term, who will be stronger? Who would have more success? And Laz is saying, his argument is the guy that's doing sets of 10. He's doing more volume. He's just doing more bodybuilding, and that long term is going to pay off better. Interesting perspective. And I mean, this is how he got strong, right? This is how he got strong. Now, obviously, there are some people that are just gifted for certain things. And I said to him, he's built like a freaking stocky ass Serb, man. He's got that big, thick bone structure about him. He looks strong. He just looks strong, right? He's got that big bone structure and thick wrists and all that stuff. So, he's got that strength predisposition. But it's just interesting when you hear a guy like that talk about it. At freaking 19, he was benching like more than most guys will ever will in their life. Like, that is incredible stuff. And now he's 23 and, 207 kilos is just insanity. But it's really, really worth your while to listen to people that have walked the walk to see what their perspective is. Science you can read the papers and all that stuff, but like when you speak to guys who have actually done it, it's an interesting perspective. Now, that doesn't mean you copy everything word by word, but it's a perspective that is valuable for you to put into your information in your inside of your head and go, okay, what does that mean for me? What is it? Am I on the right path doing these sets of 10 that I'm doing everywhere? It's an interesting topic, and I reckon I'm on the right path. The bodybuilding thing, even though it didn't excite me 10 years ago, it's now exciting me because I've seen the full light. And I think most of us need to spend more time building or bodybuilding, and then specializing that in lifting heavy weights. That doesn't mean you don't touch anything heavy for 6 months. Nah, you still do your stuff along the journey, but you spend 90% of your time doing the actual, sets of 10. Interesting stuff. Appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.